الله فما له من ولي من بعده وترى الظالمين لما رأوا العذاب يقولون هل إلى مرد من سبيل وتراهم يعرضون عليها خاشعين من الذل ينظرون من طرف خفي وقال الذين آمنوا إن الخاسرين الذين خسروا أنفسهم وأهليهم يوم القيامة ألا إن الظالمين في عذاب مقيم وما كان لهم من أولياء ينصرونهم من دون الله ومن يضلل الله فما له من سبيل السماوات والأرض يخلق ما يشاء يهب لمن يشاء إناثا ويهب لمن يشاء الذكور أو يزوجهم ذكرانا وإناثا ويجعل من يشاء عقيما إنه عليم قدير وما كان لبشر أن يكلمه الله إلا وحيا أو من وراء حجاب أو يرسل رسولا فيوحي بإذنه ما يشاء إنه علي حكيم وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حاميم والكتاب المبين إنا جعلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون وإنه في أم الكتاب لدينا لعلي حكيم أفنضرب عنكم الذكر صفحا أن كنتم قوما مسرفين وكم أرسلنا من نبي في الأولين وما يأتيهم من نبي إلا كانوا به يستهزئون فأهلكنا أشد منهم بطشا ومضى مثل الأولين. ولئن سألتهم من خلق السماوات والأرض ليقولن خلقهن العزيز العليم. الذي جعل لكم الأرض مهدا وسلك لكم فيها سبلا لعلكم تهتدون. والذي نزل من السماء ماء بقدر فأنشرنا به بلدة ميتا كذلك تخرجون. والذي خلق الأزواج كلها وجعل لكم من الفلك والأنعام ما تركبون لتستووا على ظهوره ثم تذكروا نعمة ربكم إذا استويتم عليه وتقولوا سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الرحمن الرحيم نستعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, after we pray Salat Sunnah, we're going to immediately begin the Community Hub program for tonight. It's going to be a continuation of the life of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa ardah. This is part 2. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Fajr tomorrow, by the way, is going to be at 6:10 inshallah ta'ala. Fajr, instead of being at 6:15, is going to be at 6:10 tomorrow inshallah. Fajr 6:10 and Asr will be at 4 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone doing? Jazakumullah khair everyone for coming for the community hub. Inshallah, a few things before we get started just from the etiquettes of the musalla is that if everyone can take out their phone and make sure that their phone is on silent and that won't disturb anyone. Please, during the talk from the Shaykh, please do not talk on your phones. Don't make any noises. One of the things that we like to maintain is we like to keep the serenity of the musalla, we say. So please, no side conversations, nothing like that, inshallah. Even the people outside by the shoes, if you can also stay silent while we're during the talk. Another thing is that we like to have everyone come as long as you're physically able and you don't have to sit on the walls. If everyone can come and join us in the middle, come closer to the Shaykh. So everyone on the sides, on the left and the right, if you can get up inshallah and come closer. There's a lot of gaps. The Shaykh is very, very friendly. He doesn't bite, I swear. So you can feel free to come closer to the middle. Inshallah, for those who don't, also we have downstairs, inshallah, we have Sister Sireen for our young audience. So if you have any children ages up to 5 years old, you can go downstairs with Sister Sireen and then the parents can relax over here. But if there are children that are going to be in the musalla, please, it's important that they stay with their children and the children stay with their parents and they stay quiet, inshallah, so that they don't disturb the talk. And also it's important that we don't have any of the children running across the musalla during the talk. It's surprisingly very sensitive, these floors, so anyone who's running in the back, everyone tends to feel it. A few announcements. Tomorrow night we'll have the Ummi and Me over here in the masjid. It's for ages 0 to 5. It's from 5:30 to 6:30. At the Patterson Masjid, we'll have a series with Shaykh Yusuf Bakir called Through the Words of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. It's about the tafsir of Surah Luqman. And on Sunday, over here in this masjid from 6 to 8, alhamdulillah, we'll be starting a series called Ask Me Anything. It's an opportunity for you to come with any questions. There's no question that's off bounds as long as it's asked in an appropriate manner. We still want to have some adab in the masjid. But if there's a question that you're a bit embarrassed to ask publicly and want the Shaykh or Ustad Zaid, who's also going to be here on Sunday, to answer, you can always text your question to the number right here. There's this sign right next to the Shaykh. You can text the question anonymously and then the Shaykh can address it, inshallah. So Sunday is 2 hours dedicated for the whole entire community to ask any questions they have, whether it be fiqhi or just guidance questions, to the Shaykh and Ustaz Zaid. And finally, on Monday there's going to be an ISPC youth night over here at the masjid after Isha with halaqat and a dinner and tajweed for our youth, for our teens, inshallah. And with that, I'll give it to the Shaykh Osamah to continue to talk to us about the story of Uthman, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم بارك لنا في جمعنا هذا اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مباركا مرحوما واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا معنا شقيا ولا محروما اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه Oh Allah, we ask you to bless this gathering and to bless our pursuit. Oh Allah, bless us with sound understanding of our deen and bless us with sound practice of our deen. Oh Allah, bless us to follow in the footsteps of our righteous predecessors from the messengers and from the companions of our dearly beloved Prophet ﷺ and gather us with them in your shade the day that there's no shade but yours. Oh Allah, we ask you to help us navigate through every trial and difficulty in life. Oh Allah, bring ease to every difficulty in our affairs. Bring ease to every difficulty in our affairs. O Allah, fill our hearts with your abundant mercy and fill our homes with your abundant mercy and make us steadfast upon Iman and make our last words in this dunya, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. O Allah, make us of those under the banner of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah on the day of judgment, and bless us to be upon the fountain of your Prophet ﷺ and to drink from his palms a drink that will never feel thirst thereafter. Allahumma ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen amma ba'd. Last week we began discussing different aspects from the life of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa ardah. And we stopped at discussing his virtues. And we mentioned that Sayyidina Uthman, of course one of the greatest companions, was also among the most noble of Quraysh and the most respected of Quraysh before and after his Islam. And he was known to be a businessman. He inherited the business from his father, and he would actually travel for business to different lands, and he met with many different people. And Sayyidina Uthman was also unique in that he was the only one among the companions and probably among the people in all of human history who actually married two daughters of a prophet. So Sayyidina Uthman married first Ruqayya bint Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and when she passed away, he married Kulthum. And he was actually blessed with a son from Ruqayya who lived for a few years and then passed away at the age of 6. So his son was the Prophet ﷺ's grandson. And we said that Sayyidina Uthman also was very well known for his relationship, his strong relationship with the Quran. And one of the unique things that's mentioned in his life is, and these are from authentic sources, is that Sayyidina Uthman was said to have completed the Quran in a night. The whole Quran, its recitation in a night. And for us and for our understandings and for our sensibilities, it's very difficult to perceive this. When we struggle doing that in a year for some of us. But Sayyidina Uthman, this was something that he did not do as a habit, because as we said last week, the Prophet ﷺ said that if you finish the Quran in under 3, then you will not understand what you're reciting. This isn't an outright prohibition of completing it under than 3, because many of our early predecessors did this, but this is something that they did perhaps occasionally during their lives. And Sayyidina Uthman was one of these individuals. Sayyidina Uthman was also notable because the Prophet ﷺ during his lifetime mentioned that he will be a martyr. As we said, the mountain of Uhud tremored when the Prophet ﷺ was upon it, and when Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman were along with him, and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Uthbut Uhud, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ نَبِيٌّ وَصِدِّيقٌ وَشَهِيدًا." Upon you is a prophet and a Siddiq, and that is Abu Bakr, and 2 martyrs, and that is Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Uthman. We said that all of the khulafa, all of the 4 khulafa, had some relation to the Prophet ﷺ, some of them closer than others. And of course the closest of all out of these 4 was who? No, in blood relation. Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was the closest one out of all of them. He was the Prophet ﷺ's cousin, right? And Sayyidina Uthman also had that relationship. On one end, the Prophet ﷺ was his father-in-law, because he married his daughters. And also on the other end, he had a distant relation to the Prophet ﷺ. As we said, Arabia was a tribal society. So at a certain point, all of these tribes had some link with each other. So Abu Bakr and Umar were father-in-laws for the Prophet ﷺ. And Uthman and Ali were son-in-laws for the Prophet ﷺ. The other unique thing that we discussed about Sayyidina Uthman was his modesty. And the Prophet ﷺ described him as a man who the angels feel a strong sense of modesty in his presence. رَجُلْ تَسْتَحِي مِنْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. And there's this hadith that we mentioned, that the Prophet ﷺ was lying down and he was in the garments he was covering himself in the wool of Sayyidah Aisha. And Abu Bakr and Umar came in and they spoke with him for some time. And the Prophet ﷺ stayed lying upon the bed of Aisha, covered in that wool cloth. And then when Sayyidina Uthman came, the Prophet ﷺ stood up, he changed into his own clothes, and then he received Sayyidina Uthman. And in another version of the hadith, it says that either his shins or his thigh, different narrations, were uncovered when Abu Bakr and Umar came in. And then when Sayyidina Uthman came in, the Prophet ﷺ covered up. And he said to Sayyidah Aisha, when she asked, why did you do for Uthman what you didn't do for Abu Bakr and Umar? He said, أَلَا أَسْتَحِي مِنْ رَجُلٍ تَسْتَحِي مِنْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Should I not show a level of shyness or modesty in front of someone who the angels themselves show this modesty to? So we took from this a fiqhi ruling. According to mainstream scholarship, they take the hadith that says, the variation that says that his shins were uncovered. And that's why for the man, it's impermissible for him to expose his thighs in the presence of another man. But some scholars, they take the other narration, which says the thighs were uncovered. And if the thighs of the Prophet were uncovered in front of Abu Bakr and Umar, that means the thighs are not a awrah. And that's why it's a minority. But some scholars, they say that the thigh isn't part of the awrah. So if it was exposed, then there's no problem with that. It's a minority. The majority says that up to the knee. Or some of them even say including the knee. But there is this opinion that says the thigh is also not a awrah. In any case, that's where we left off last week. And we mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ also said about Sayyidina Uthman that he will enter Jannah after a great trial that will befall him. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said about Sayyidina Uthman, this is an authentic hadith, that he said that Uthman will be killed in that trial and in that fitna. يُقْتَلُ فِيهَا هَذَا الْمُقَنَّعُ يَوْمَئِذٍ مَظْلُومًا. The Prophet ﷺ said that he will wrongfully be killed. And they went and they said, the al-muqanna' means the one who's covering his face up. So they went to see who was that man that was covering his face, and it was Sayyidina Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And the Prophet ﷺ said in another variation, فَهُوَ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَى الْهُدَى. We said one of the unique things about the lives of the khulafa is they teach us how to conduct ourselves in times of ease and in times of adversity. And we see the full range of that. And we said that learning how to conduct ourselves in the time and learning from adversity is one of the most important things in the life of the believer. Sometimes you learn so much from shidda and bala that you would never learn if you were just in ease. So in the early part of the four khulafa, you find that there was difficulties for the ummah, but it was never internal, it was external. During the time of Abu Bakr and during the time of Sayyidina Umar and during the first half of the rule of Sayyidina Uthman. But during the second half of his rule and during the rule of Sayyidina Ali, the conflicts became internal. And knowing how to deal with one another when there's intense conflicts is something that we must reflect upon from the lives of the companions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure be upon them. Now, continuing with the life of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and today we have a very important subject to discuss, was the other aspect of his virtues. But before that, we need to discuss a few things about his companionship for the Prophet ﷺ. First off, some of the scenes from his life in the different battles. During the battle of Badr, where was Sayyidina Uthman? Was Sayyidina Uthman a Badri? Badri means someone who's witnessed Badr. Was he a Badri? Yes? No? How many say yes? You say yes? Okay, how many say no? Okay, if you say no, why do you say no? What was he doing instead? Okay, so both of you are right in a sense, and I need to clarify. There's something very unique about Sayyidina Uthman. He is a person who did not physically witness Badr, but was counted among the people of Badr. He did not physically witness Badr, but the Prophet ﷺ counted him among the members of Badr. And the reason is because when the companions were getting ready to go out, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, Ruqayya, his first wife, at the time became very ill. And this illness led to her death. And in fact, she passed away before the Prophet ﷺ and the companions returned from Badr. And she was actually buried. And when the Prophet ﷺ came back from Badr, he went directly to her grave and he prayed for his daughter. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ commanded Uthman to stay behind and not to go out in Badr. He was fully ready and he was going to go. But the Prophet told him, don't go. Stay behind and take care of my daughter, your wife, Ruqayya. So the Prophet ﷺ actually said in the hadith about Sayyidina Uthman, Inna laka ajra rajulin mimman shahida badran wa sahmahu. For you are going to get the reward of the person who witnessed Badr, and you're going to get a portion of the spoils of wars as though you attended the battle directly. And what's so special about this being categorized as a Badri? Why is this such a lofty status among the companions? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, and this hadith was about a companion by the name of Hatib. This companion committed a very grievous error, a very serious error. And that was, he was afraid for his family that were still in Mecca. And the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were getting ready to go for Fath Mecca, the conquest of Mecca. And Hatib thought he can win favor from the people of Mecca, and he'll basically cover both ends. That way, if the people of Mecca were able to stop the Muslims, they would let his family off the hook, and they won't hurt his family. Because he was very concerned about this. What's going to happen to my family? If the Muslims go to Mecca and they lose, my family is going to face the consequences, because they don't have a tribe to protect them in Mecca. So he made a very grievous error. And he sent a message, and the Prophet ﷺ was informed by revelation of this, and the message was intercepted. And Sayyidina Umar said to the Prophet, let me cut off the head of this hypocrite. دعني أقطع عنق هذا المنافق. This is treason, direct treason. Sayyidina Hatib didn't mean to be treasonous because he was doing it out of fear for his family. But in the end of the day, he could have really hurt the Muslims by doing this. The Prophet ﷺ then turned to Umar. He said, ما يدريك لعل الله اطلع على أهل بدر فقال اعملوا ما شئتم فإني قد غفرت لكم. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has looked upon the people of Badr and said, do as you may, I have forgiven you. Right? Now there's something important to reflect on here. This lofty status of a Badri. Right? Now when someone is able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in adversity, has the guts to do that, has the guts to stand up for what's right when you're going against the grain and everyone is against you, there is immense reward for this. And that's what made the people of Badr so special. Because at that time, they were greatly outnumbered. The kuffar were 3 times their number. And the Prophet ﷺ, they were still not required to fight in battle. The Prophet ﷺ gave them the option. We can either turn back or fight. How many of you will fight? And they all stood with the Prophet ﷺ. That's why when you worship Allah in the face of great adversity, then know that there's a lot of reward waiting for you. This is something to reflect on in our personal lives. When you are trying to be a good Muslim and trying to pray, and your whole family is pulling you down. Maybe Allah tested you with a family that isn't practicing, and your whole family is pulling you down and draining you spiritually. And it's so difficult, so many problems at home, and it's very difficult to deal with them. Then remember what the companions did. Remember this stance from the companions. And perhaps Allah will give you some of the reward that He gave them. Because the Prophet ﷺ actually promised this. He said that there will come after you the days of patience. إِنَّ مِن وَرَائِكُمْ أَيَّامَ الصَّبْرِ. Alright. The Prophet ﷺ said there will come days of patience after you. The one who is holding strongly to his deen is like the one who's holding burning coal. Very difficult. How could you do that? Right? It's very difficult to do that. So, مثل قابض على الجمر. The Prophet ﷺ said the people who do good deeds in the face of that adversity will get 50 times the reward of the companions. Doesn't mean that they'll become better than the companions, because the companions have something that no one else has, and that is suhbah and companionship of Al-Habib al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But the rewards of their deeds, if they're able to do them, will be 50 times the rewards of the companions who did so in the times of ease. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا. The people who worshipped and gave and sacrificed after the conquest of Mecca are not like the same, not the same as those who did it before. Right? So worshipping Allah in great adversity. So this was the reason why this status was so significant. So Sayyidina Uthman got that status. And that's what Sayyidina Uthman was doing during the Battle of Badr. And the second scene from his companionship with the Prophet ﷺ that I'll share is Sayyidina Uthman during Uhud. During Badr, mashallah, he was given something that wasn't given to anyone else. The reward of Badr without even attending. Right? So during Uhud, Sayyidina Uthman had a different story. As you know, during Uhud, the Muslims were defeated. And the whole second half of Ali Imran is addressing this defeat. And when the signs of defeat became apparent, the Muslims were divided into three groups. The first group were those who remained on the mountain and obeyed the command of the Prophet ﷺ and were all killed. And at the head of these was Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Jubair. They were all killed when Khalid ibn Walid circled around the mountain and he killed all of the Roma, all of the archers that remained. And the second group were those who fled back to Medina. They fled back and retreated in the whole hustle and bustle and the whole commotion of the war, of the battle. They fled back to Medina. The third group was a group that surrounded the Prophet ﷺ and defended him, and suffered great injuries and great loss in defending the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Which group was Sayyidina Uthman from? The second one. Sayyidina Uthman, believe it or not, was among those who fled back to Medina. And this is something actually that people later on held against him. They held a lot of things against him. I'm going to share the hadith with you just to reflect on. Even no matter how great you are, rumors, bad rumors can spread about you. No matter how great you are, bad rumors can spread about you. Sayyidina Uthman was among those who retreated back to Medina. Out of character for him, because obviously he was min as-sabiqin al-awwalin min al-Islam, ila al-Islam. He was, we said, number 4, who became Muslim among the males, among the men. And he has so many other virtues. And he is mubashshar bil Jannah, and so on and so forth. How do we understand this situation? First off, of course, when you're in the middle of a battle, and there's a whole, he wasn't a coward, of course, hasha. But when you're in the middle of a battle, and all different types of things are going on, and rumors are spreading, and it was said that the Prophet ﷺ was killed, and the Muslims all began fleeing after they were running after the spoils on the battlefield. They found the enemies coming from behind. So understand the situation. Sometimes when you're in the heat of a situation, things get so confusing, and you don't know what's the best course of action. It gets confusing, even for the best of us. You don't need to necessarily see this as cowardice. Perhaps he was afraid of the kuffar going to attack Medina itself when he saw the Muslims being defeated. Anyway, Allah sent down a verse in Ali Imran about those who retreated from the battlefield. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَلَّوْا مِنْكُمْ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجَمْعَانِ إِنَّمَا اسْتَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ بِبَعْضِ مَا كَسَبُوا وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the shaitan got the better of these individuals who retreated. The shaitan got the better of them. They faltered because of their own wrongdoing. They made a mistake. The shaitan got the better of them. But Allah says words about them, وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. Allah has given them full afu and acquittal. Acquittal, as afu in English, is like exoneration. When you're exonerated from a crime, this crime is no longer in your records. That's it. You're a free man, and in the eyes of the public, you are not a convict. You're exonerated. You are proven innocent. Tamam? This is what exoneration is in the courts. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about these individuals, Allah has given them afu, exoneration. And this is different than maghfirah. This is different than just mere forgiveness. During Ramadan, what do we say? Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Oh Allah, you are al-afu, and you love to do afu, so give us your afu. Right? So afu is to completely remove it from the books. That it's no longer tainting your legacy. It's completely erased, as though it did not happen. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to those who made this mistake. Again, because it was early on in the process of tarbiyah and development. And just as the companions had certain hiccups along the road of growth and development, we also have those hiccups and mistakes in the process of our development. So this is what was given to Sayyidina Uthman and the companions. Same thing, no one now can say, it would be completely wrong for someone to say that, oh, we're here in this dunya because of the mistake of our father Adam. That we blame Adam alayhi salam because of us being here. It's his fault that we were removed from Jannah. This is not Islamic rhetoric. No, this is not proper rhetoric at all. Because Allah has intended us to be khulafa and to be His successive authority upon this earth from before He created Adam alayhi salam. Everything that happened after that was all details. So having this understanding, oh, we're here because of the sin of our father Adam. No, this is not Islamic understanding. No, not at all. So this is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's afu, and this is how we explain this scene from the life of Sayyidina Uthman. Sayyidina Uthman, after that, wasn't removed from the favor of the Prophet. No, not at all. The Prophet ﷺ in later battles, like when he went out to meet the tribe of Ghatafan in battle, and Ghazwat Dhat al-Riqa', these are two battles. These were two incidents that did not have actually any fighting. Okay, so they call it Ghazwat Dhat al-Riqa', but there was no battle that actually happened. Uthman was left as Emir of Medina in the absence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, going on to one of the most significant incidents during the life of Sayyidina Uthman and his companionship of the Prophet ﷺ, and that is when the Muslims went to perform the Hajj with the Prophet ﷺ, or went to Mecca to do the rituals, and were turned away or were stopped at Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ and the companions were stopped from continuing to do the manasik in Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to send someone to do some tafawud and some reach agreement with the people of Quraysh. Because this was out of character. They never done this before. Anyone who came as a pilgrim to the sacred house, they would never turn them away. But for the first time, they actually stopped the Muslims from coming to Mecca. They did not allow them to do it. So, the Prophet ﷺ first sent a man who wasn't really well known. His name was Kharash ibn Umayyah al-Khuza'i. And when he entered Mecca, immediately the people of Quraysh attacked him. And they almost killed him. So he fled back to the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to send someone else. And there's a lot of beautiful lessons here, brothers and sisters. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to send someone else. Who did he then have, who did he intend on sending after that as a deputy to go discuss with the people of Mecca? Who knows? Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, right? But Sayyidina Umar refused. And he said to the Prophet ﷺ that after what I've done with the people of Mecca, there's a great deal of enmity between us. I'm a big antagonist in their eyes. Right? I've greatly antagonized them, especially during the Hijrah and after he became a Muslim and during leading up and when he left to Medina, there was a lot of enmity between him and the kuffar of Quraysh. Also, he did not have the backing of a strong family. So he said, I suggest you send Sayyidina Uthman. Because Sayyidina Uthman was still respected in the eyes of the people of Quraysh. And he comes from a strong and well-known family. As we said, he comes from the Umayyads, right? Bani Umayyah. And he was related to Sufyan, Sayyidina Sufyan, who later became among the Muslims. So he was from a very respected family. And you see in Sayyidina Umar how selfless he is. For the companions, this is something you could see categorically in all of the situations in their life. It wasn't about repute and status. This is obviously, again, the companions were making history. He could have been, Sayyidina Umar, if he really wanted status and respect, he would have listened to the Prophet ﷺ and went without question. And this would have been, something, a source of great honor for him. Out of all the companions, the one who was sent was Sayyidina Umar. This would have been great honor. But for Sayyidina Umar, it wasn't about seeking honor or glory or fame. That's what made the companions so unique. And if we want to tread in their path, this is the type of relationships that we need to have with one another. It's not about me being in the limelight. It's not about me harnessing all the power and having it in my hand. This is Community Development 101, Community Work 101. If you have the members in a community, whether it's a masjid, an Islamic school, an organization, whatever it is, if you have the dynamic of tanafus ala al-imara and seeking to be in a leadership position and fighting over being in a leadership position, then know that that community is not ready to be a very prophetic community. The companions were a very prophetic community because they did not have this tanafus ala al-imara, as you could see in the actions of Sayyidina Umar. Anyway, Sayyidina Uthman went to Mecca. And he started speaking to the people of Mecca, trying to convince them. Look, if the Prophet ﷺ is victorious, this is your glory. If the Prophet ﷺ fails and is killed in the process, then you're free of his annoyance and his disturbance. Why stand as antagonists in his way? Just let him continue to convey his message. Let the relationship remain peaceful. But they refused. They didn't want to hear it. And they refused to allow the Prophet ﷺ to continue in his journey to Mecca. They did not want to have it. And the Prophet ﷺ then only, after that, performed one Hajj during his lifetime, and that was during the Hajjatul Wada'. In later years, Sayyidina Abu Bakr led a group in Hajj before the Prophet ﷺ's farewell pilgrimage. So there were a few incidents of Hajj before the Hajjatul Wada' towards the end of the Prophet ﷺ's life. So anyway, so they refused. But they told Sayyidina Uthman, if you want, here is the Kaaba, go ahead and do tawaf. We'll let you do tawaf because we respect you, but we won't let the Muslims come in. So he refused. And he got delayed and held up a little bit in Mecca. He actually carried a message to the Muslims that were still in Mecca, because there were still Muslims in Mecca that were not allowed to make hijrah. They were denied by their families. So he gave them a message of encouragement from the Prophet ﷺ, and also they sent with him a message to the Prophet ﷺ. And Sayyidina Uthman got held up, and rumors spread that Uthman was killed. And the Prophet ﷺ's reaction to this was asking the companions to give bay'ah. Bay'ah in Hudaybiyah for death. They pledged their allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ to the death. That they're going to face off with the kuffar of Quraysh at any expense, even if we're not ready for battle, even if we're not ready for war. If they killed my deputy, the senior companion, Uthman ibn Affan, then we're going to face off with them. And all of the companions, around 1,500 companions, gave bay'ah to the Prophet ﷺ, and then the Prophet ﷺ did something very special. Prophet ﷺ took one hand of his and put it in the other hand, and he said, وَهَذِهِ يَدُ عُثْمَانِ. And this is the hand of Uthman. All of the companions present gave bay'ah. And Allah mentions this bay'ah in Surah Al-Fath. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Allah gave them His rida and His pleasure, and He was pleased with everyone there, everyone in attendance. Allah gave them His rida. And this is something very special, right? That's why we call it, what do we call this bay'ah? Bay'at al-Ridwan. Bay'at al-Ridwan, right? So the covenant of Ridwan. So the Prophet ﷺ gave Uthman a very special honor, in that he made his own hand, ﷺ, in the place of the hand of Uthman, and counted him among the people of Bay'at al-Ridwan. Because these are individuals who Allah sent Qur'an down speaking about. And He wanted Uthman to have that virtue and that fadl. So this is another thing about Sayyidina Uthman. And then later on, they found out that the news was false and Sayyidina Uthman wasn't actually killed. And then the seerah goes on to mention what later unfolded and Hudaybiyah and all of the rest. Well, the point is that this is another thing that happened during the life of Sayyidina Uthman. And these things were held against him. This is where I'm going to share with you the hadith. During the fitna that later happened in his life, someone came to Sayyidina Ibn Umar. And he said to him the following: do you know that Uthman ibn Affan was among those did not witness Badr? And then Sayyidina Ibn Umar said yes, and he did takbir. Yes, Allahu Akbar. And then this man went on to ask another question. Do you know that he is among those who fled during the battle of Uhud? And Sayyidina Ibn Umar said, Na'am, Allahu Akbar. He said, Na'am, yes, Allahu Akbar. And then the man said, do you know he was also absent during Bay'at al-Ridwan? Sayyidina Ibn Umar said, Na'am, Allahu Akbar. And then Sayyidina Ibn Umar went on to explain in defense of Uthman the explanation that I gave you here today. And that is, as for Badr, he was caring for the daughter of the Prophet. And as for Uhud, Allah gave them afu. So no one can contradict the direct words of Allah and mention Uthman in a negative light because of what he did in Uhud. Because Allah gave them His complete exoneration. Right? And then the third thing about Bay'at al-Ridwan, it was made because of him. He was absent because it was said that he was killed. But now you see, there's something very important to reflect on here. Rumors happen all the time. Even in the most blessed communities. The community of companions. Can you believe that? That news would spread. And we're not talking about hundreds of years later. We're talking about during the lives of the companions and the generation right after them. The generation right after them. So it hasn't been so long. But rumors spread, stories change, and sometimes people are painted in a negative light. No matter how great you are, perhaps some people might end up attributing something very wrongfully to you. Now when you hear those criticisms about Uthman, instead of thinking he is the great companion, you might think that he is a very horrible person. And it's something we need to be very careful from. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us this through the experience of the companions. During the lifetime of the Prophet and after the lifetime of the Prophet. It happened to the wife of the Prophet ﷺ herself. In Hadith of Uthman, that rumors could be so widespread and so powerful that they can become distorted into being understood and perceived as the truth by people. And it could cause a huge conflict. So we need to be very careful in our transmission of information. And this is a value that the Prophet ﷺ hammered in the discipline of the companions. Be careful of what you transmit. Be careful of how you transmit it. Be careful of who you transmit it to. These are all things that relate to many subjects in our deen. And this is how we see it happening in practice. And this is what we need to learn from as a community. If we really want to engender the Prophet's character and the Prophet ﷺ's legacy in our lives, as our Khatib today, Ustad Zayd, was mentioning. If we really want to live that, if we really want to make our character better and see the prophetic character coming out in our behavior, really coming from our hearts genuinely, this is the level of accountability we need to have for ourselves. What am I transmitting? How am I transmitting it? And who am I transmitting it to? So this is something that happened to Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa ardah. Something very important among the virtues of Sayyidina Uthman. And that is his generosity. If there's anyone among the companions who is well known for generosity, it's Sayyidina Uthman. And this unfolded in many different scenarios during his lifetime radiallahu ta'ala anhu. One of these scenes happened in Tabuk. Tabuk was in the 9th year after Hijrah. It was the last battle the Prophet ﷺ went out in. And during this battle, there was great drought and there was a scarcity of resources and crops. And the Prophet ﷺ turned to the companions to donate. Who will prepare the army to meet the Romans? Right? So the Prophet ﷺ asked the companions, and Abu Bakr came with all of his wealth. Umar came with half of his wealth. Sayyidina Abdurrahman ibn Auf came with half of his wealth. And he was also one of the very wealthy companions. Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan gave more than anyone else gave. It's reported in the Hadith that Sayyidina Uthman prepared around 950 saddles, rides for people to ride with the weaponry. And also 50 horses on top of that to complete the 1,000. So he basically prepared 1,000 rides and the weapons needed for the companions on these. And he gave a donation of 1,000 silver coins to the Prophet ﷺ directly. And of course, for them, that's a lot of money. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have the time to translate that into modern dollars. How much would that be? 1,000 silver coins. But this would be basically a few thousand grams of silver. For their times, you calculate inflation. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to buy a sheep for a few dirhams. That's what you need to calculate it as. A few dirhams, a few silver coins, would give them a sheep. Even mentioned some hadith, 2 dirhams or 1 dirham would get them a full sheep. So this was a lot of money. And the Prophet ﷺ, when Sayyidina Uthman gave this amount of wealth, he said, مَا ضَرَّ عُثْمَانَ مَا عَمِلَ بَعْدَ الْيَوْمِ مَا ضَرَّ عُثْمَانَ مَا عَمِلَ بَعْدَ الْيَوْمِ. Anything that Uthman would do after today would not harm him in any way. Anything that Uthman would do today would not harm him in any way. So this is a beautiful thing about the lives of the companions, brothers and sisters, is they give us different models. Sayyidina Uthman is the model of the significance of the Muslims having someone who is on one end carries a certain level of social repute, and on the other end is very wealthy. And this is different roles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed for His believers. Some believers, their role is in teaching. Some believers, their role is in patience and in ibadah and sabr. And some believers, their role is in representation and advocating for the Muslims and on their behalf. Sayyidina Uthman was that advocate for the Muslims. Now, even when you translate that to our reality, if one of us, if one of the members of the Muslim community was to advocate for our causes, not everyone carries the same clout in society today. If you have a first generation immigrant or a second generation immigrant like me speaking on behalf of the Muslims, it's not like when you have one of the people who are indigenous to the country, Muslims who are from the country and have been here for generations. This is the reality of people. The reality of people is they give value to these things, for better or for worse. This is what people do. This is how people assess things. When Fulan says something, when so-and-so says something, it's not necessarily at the same weight as when so-and-so says, even if it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact thing said by 2 different people, is received completely differently by certain people. By people. This person, it's received in a certain light because of his repute and his status and his family, or his degrees, or his shahada, or his the favor that he's won in the hearts of people. So this is how people treat things. And the same thing, this is very important for us to know as Muslims, that when we are able to have someone to advocate for our causes, who has this clout and has this repute, then we need to work alongside those individuals. We need to promote those individuals to achieve that cause. Right? So this is what Sayyidina Uthman was. Sayyidina Uthman, he was a very generous person, and he was unique among the companions because of his generosity. And this is not the only scenario during his lifetime. Tabuk was only one. And it's said that during Tabuk, he prepared 1/3 of the army. Yes, the other companions also donated, but 1/3 of the army was prepared by Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan. So this is one scene from his generosity. There is another scene in when the Muslims first went to Medina. And the Muslims, when they first went to Medina, they had a problem in finding good sources for water. And one of these wells in Medina, it's called Bi'r Roma, or it was referred to as Bi'r Roma, was owned by one of the Jews of Medina. And he leveraged the need that the Muslims had for this well to try to earn an extra buck. Every time someone wanted from this water, he would charge them a dirham, a silver coin. Or in a hadith it's mentioned, a measure of grains. And this became very difficult. Imagine that. Whenever you need water for cooking, for bathing, for even just for drinking, you need to pay for it. And there's no water source that's open to the public. You cannot get water if you don't buy it in bottles from the store, mathalan, for, if you want to translate that to our reality. Imagine if the only access you had to water was by buying it in bottles from the stores. There's no water in the houses. And every time you need water, you need to go to the store and buy, and you need to use the Poland spring waters to take a shower, to clean yourself after relieving yourself, and to cook, and all the rest. So it became very, and especially when you're talking about a situation that people live in adverse poverty. That they had very difficult situation, very difficult lifestyle. For us, of course, we have water bills, and we do need to buy that drinking water. But for the companions, this was very difficult. And what happened? The Prophet ﷺ turned to the companions and he said, "Man yashtari bi'r Roma, man yashtari bi'r Roma falahul Jannah." Prophet ﷺ turned to the companions and said, "Who will buy this well? And if he does so, he will get Jannah." So Sayyidina Uthman, without hesitation, went and purchased the well and made it as a waqf for the Muslims. He made it as an endowment. And there's something very special here about this. The name was changed, of course, to Bi'r Uthman. And this well is in Medina, and it is still gushing forth water till today. 1400 years later, Bi'r Uthman is still functioning and producing. And it's still regarded as an endowment and as a waqf for the Muslims. Imagine that. From the time of the companions to today, Sayyidina Uthman has huge plots of land, and they're known in Saudi Arabia, huge plots of land that produce dates. And these plots of land are known as Waqf Uthman, the endowments of Uthman. And this well, Bi'r Uthman, is also among these endowments. 1400 years, the books of Uthman are still piling up hasanat, and it has not stopped. In multitudes. Imagine that. For Sayyidina Uthman, the reward for this, indeed, man yashtari bi'r Roma falahul Jannah. Sayyidina Uthman was that person. He was willing to make those big sacrifices. Many instances during his lifetime. And it was said that he purchased this well for 20,000 silver coins. Some of them say 35,000 silver coins. Alright, if I told you, 1,000 silver coins was a few thousand grams of silver, 35,000 silver coins, how much is that? That's a lot of money. You're talking, if you want to convert that, then go look it up. How much is 60,000 grams of silver worth today? You can go look it up. Maybe if you quickly look it up on Google. 1 gram of silver, of course, is not worth that much. But when you say 60,000, so that's a lot of money. All right. So if anyone finds the number, just let us know, and I could mention it. But in any case, so that's who Sayyidina Uthman was. And if you're that person who's blessed with a lot of money, then make sure full well that your route to Jannah is going to be how you use that money. Because just as poverty is a test, ghina and having money is also a test. Be careful. Don't ever be that person who says, I'll give when I get $1 million. Some people, they do that. Oh, inshallah, when I establish myself financially and I have a big business and I get a lot of income, that's when I'll start helping and I'll start giving charities. No, don't be that person, right? Because usually those people don't end up giving when they have, right? Give whatever you can, and the greatest amount of karam and generosity is when you give when you are in need yourself. Alright? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Ansar, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةً. The greatest form of generosity is giving when you yourself are in need. But if you're that person who has a lot of money, be careful, because that money is a big test. If we have one example of Uthman, then we have millions of others of people who their wealth has sent them down a very dark hole and a dark pit. It consumed their lives, it consumed their attention, they abandoned their prayers, they abandoned their involvement in the community, and they abandoned their attending to their spiritual needs and their responsibilities and duties of their deen. So not everyone who has a lot of wealth can do this. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Few of my servants are truly grateful. So this is something very unique during the life of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda. A few more things and then I'll close. Sayyidina Uthman, in the 3rd year after Hijrah, got married again. And as we said, his first wife, Ruqayya, passed away during the Battle of Badr. He married Kulthum after some time. And the story behind that is the following. When his wife passed away, Sayyidina Umar came to Uthman and he said, what do you think of Hafsa? I'm willing to marry you my daughter. Right? So Sayyidina Uthman wanted time to think. He didn't give him an answer. Sayyidina Umar also went to Abu Bakr and offered his daughter. But Sayyidina Abu Bakr also did not give an answer. Sayyidina Umar got disappointed. I offered you my daughter Hafsa and you guys aren't being straightforward with me. So he went and he complained to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ said, what would you say if you marry your daughter to me and I marry my daughter to Uthman, Kulthum? So Sayyidina Umar, of course, saw the great honor in this. And then later on he found out from Abu Bakr and Uthman the reason why they didn't give him an answer was because they knew that the Prophet ﷺ was considering the marriage to Hafsa. So that's why they didn't give him a straightforward answer. And during this situation, the Prophet ﷺ married Kulthum to the Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And there's actually a hadith that says, يا عثمان هذا جبريل أخبرني أن الله قد زوجك كلثوم بمثل صداق رقية وعلى مثل صحبتها. Prophet, and this is in Sunan ibn Majah. Prophet ﷺ said that Jibreel came and informed me that Allah marries you my daughter Kulthum with the same mahr that you gave to Ruqayya, and with the same conditions of companionship that you had with Ruqayya. They lived with each other for 6 years. And in the 9th year after Hijrah, Kulthum also passed away. And the Prophet and Sayyidina Uthman was devastated by this loss. Very devastated by the loss of his wife, Kulthum. Now you see, during the life of the companions, you see there's a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of loss, a lot of difficulties. The person, when they have to go through the struggle of losing their spouse passing away once, is one thing. But Sayyidina Uthman, you see now he went through the loss of 2 wives. And he went through the loss of a son, who passed away when he was only 6 years old, the Prophet ﷺ's grandson. Right? There's a lot of difficulty there. And you see how easy the companions were in the issue of marriage. Unfortunately, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith that if someone comes to you that you accept their religion and their character, then accept their marriage, because if you do not do so, you will cause إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. There will be great tribulations in the land and there will be great corruption. And the companions were very easy on this issue. The Prophet ﷺ, after the loss of Kulthum, he said to Sayyidina Uthman, he said, لو كانت عندنا ثالثة لزوجناكها يا عثمان. If we had a 3rd daughter, we would have married her to you, O Uthman. This is a very high status that he had in the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, and you see, they did not make an issue of these things, and we need to learn this from the lives of the companions. The lives of the companions were so blessed, and part of that blessing was stemming from their ta'ah and their servitude, and the fact that they avoided sins, and they avoided toxic behavior and negativity and things like that. But part of it was because of its simplicity. That's one of the things that you see in the lives of the companions. They lived their lives with a great deal of simplicity. Sometimes we make our lives very complicated. We put ourselves in very compromising situations. Now you got example, and of course there's 1,000,001 examples, but the way that we put ourselves in compromising situations. Individual, young guy, just got married, 30 years old or something like that. Just got married, no kids. Thinking of buying a house. He really wants to live in a big house, and his wife wants to be in a big house. They decide to make a big investment, and they buy a house, and maybe they do it through questionable ways. They do it through the conventional mortgage, and they're in no need of it. They're still 2. Husband and wife, no children, no need to take on this huge debt, and they have minimal income. They don't have a big job, they don't have big income for them to securely pay off this mortgage. And then they find themselves after that in a very difficult financial situation. And this causes a lot of problems at home. And this starts causing fights between the husband and the wife, because the wife is upset, and the husband is upset because the wife isn't understanding, and the wife is upset because the husband isn't giving or isn't supporting, or is making life very difficult for her. And this often leads to great conflicts that happen between the spouses. Where is it stemming from? Where is it coming from? Trying to put ourselves living according to standards that we're not ready for. Right? Why do I need to put myself in huge amounts of debt to live a lifestyle that is not for me? I don't have that type of income to be able to live this lifestyle comfortably. I put myself in compromising situations, and then I find my life become very difficult. And that reflecting on my character, reflecting on my mental health, reflecting on my marital situation, reflecting on the time that I have to give to my young children if I have children. I end up having to work 2 jobs to pay off a mortgage. What's it going to get you? If you for your children's whole childhood are absent as a father because you have to take 2 jobs on to pay off a mortgage. Well, good job. Alhamdulillah. You paid off the house, but you lost your kids. Is that a good... So this is the reality. There's 1,000,001 scenarios. We can talk endlessly about this. I chose one randomly. But one of the things that we could appreciate from the companions is the simplicity that you see in this. The Prophet ﷺ married Ruqayya to him. The Prophet ﷺ went out in battle knowing his daughter was very ill. His daughter passed away when he wasn't there. She was buried when he wasn't there. He came and he prayed for her when he came back. And then he married his 2nd daughter to the same man, and then she passed away too. And so this is how the companions, they lived with each other with a very easy demeanor and very easygoing. And this is why their relations were very smooth with one another. And there's a lot of things that we can say about this, but just to conclude, Sayyidina Uthman, after the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, played a very important role during the Khilafah and reign of Abu Bakr and Umar. He was actually in an advisory capacity. He was one of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar's ministers. They would turn to him for advice, and his advice carried a lot of weight. And Sayyidina Uthman, the last thing I would mention about this part of his life, is that during the time of Abu Bakr, the Muslims had a very difficult time economically. And the people came to Uthman when he got some of his wealth from his business that came from Sham. It's mentioned in the Hadith that Sayyidina Uthman, his wealth and his merchandise was brought from Syria, Greater Syria, on 100 rides. He had a whole lot of wealth. And when they saw this, the people came to him. The merchants of Medina came to him. Sell to us your merchandise so that we can sell it to the people. Because there's a drought, there's famine, and there's a scarcity of resources, and people need to live. Please sell us your merchandise. And so then he asked them, how much will you purchase it for me? So they gave him a certain profit range. They told him, whatever you bought for 10 dirhams, we'll buy it from you for 12. They said, whatever you bought for 10 silver coins, we will purchase it from you for 12. So you'll have a profit margin of 2 silver coins for each item. So he said, no, this isn't enough. So then they told him, okay, we'll purchase it at a profit margin of 5 silver coins. Whatever you bought for 10 silver coins, we'll purchase it from you for 15. Because this merchandise that came from Greater Syria, a lot of those things they did not have in their locality. Sayyidina Uthman said, this is not enough. So then they said to Uthman, who are you going to sell to? We are the merchants of Medina. This is a very good profit margin. So then Sayyidina Uthman said, I found someone who will give me 10 times the amount for the items that I purchased. Whatever I bought for 1 silver coin, he will give me 10. So then they said to him, who's this? Who's going to give you 10 times what you paid for it? So then he said, Allah. And I witness you all that this whole caravan that came to me of merchandise from Sham will be for the Muslims. I donate it to the community of Medina to help relieve them in this famine and in this drought. So this is the person who Sayyidina Uthman was. That's a big sacrifice. A big sacrifice. But Sayyidina Uthman wasn't living for this world. One of the person, we went to the graveyards recently to bury our brother Bishr Qaddura. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. And one of the brothers there told me that there was that he knows of a brother who passed away, may Allah have mercy on him, and left behind millions of dollars. He left behind millions of dollars, and he did not have a big family to take it. And this person, during his lifetime, wasn't very practicing. So the brother remarked to me, look, that huge amount of income that this man was making on a yearly basis in the millions, what has it helped him now? He is alongside all of the other people in this graveyard, in the same type of qabr and same type of grave that everyone else is in. And all of those millions that he had, that he could have used to gain Allah's rida and make a difference in people's lives, were left behind. He used whatever he could from it, but then everything that he left, khalas, it's gone. His books came to an end. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being for that individual. Sayyidina Uthman, He made the money, but he didn't live for the money. He wanted something greater than that. And if you're that person searching for something greater, then Uthman is an example for you, and he's an example for me. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us to follow in his example, and in the example of our righteous predecessors. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khairan. And inshallah next time, we're going to actually begin discussing the Khilafah of Uthman. And this is where we're going to discuss how he ruled during his tenure as Khalifa, and some of the controversy that happened during his lifetime, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu warda. Before I close, if anyone has any questions, you feel free to ask. Anyone have any questions, anything they'd like to ask? Of course, in 2 days, we're going to have the Ask Me Anything. So if you don't ask your question now, then please join us then, and we'll bring your questions along with you. So any questions? Uh-huh.
So all of this you've said about Uthman and other people
Mm-hmm.
basically means that whatever you live for, like, you know, it doesn't matter if you have like 50 mansions or a lot, you're not even a millionaire, but more than that. But the thing they're trying to say is that no matter how much you have, how much wealth or merchandise and anything you have, will not take away, will not like help you live a better life. The thing that you're searching for is what betters your life.
Beautiful. Yes, exactly. Yes, so you shouldn't live for the wealth. You should use that wealth as your means to Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ one time, he was with the Sayyidah Aisha, and they were giving away meat that they had from a sheep. And the Prophet ﷺ was known to love to eat from the shoulder. So Sayyidah Aisha left that for him. And in the end, when they gave away all the meat, she said to the Prophet ﷺ, لَمْ يَبْقَى مِنْهَا إِلَّا الْكَتِفِ. Nothing remains from it except the shoulder. So the Prophet ﷺ corrected her understanding. He said, بَلْ بَقِيَتْ كُلُّهَا إِلَّا الْكَتِفِ. Rather, all of it remained except the shoulder. Because the shoulder, you and I are going to eat it now, and it's going to go out of our bodies and out of our systems, and that's it, end of story. But the rest of it is what actually remained, because that's going to remain in our hasanat, inshallah. So yeah, that's a beautiful way. You had a question? Can a man pray with his shorts if his thighs are exposed? According to the majority of scholars, then no, it's not allowed. And it's a big shubha when you do that. But according to a small minority who say the fakhidh and the thigh is not a awrah, then obviously you can do that according to that minority. But now, do you really want to pray a prayer that according to most of the scholars is invalid? This is a problem. So this is where we say, that's why I said it's a strong shubha. It's a strong gray area. When you find that most of the ummah said one thing and only a few said to the contrary, well, do you want to be with the most or do you want to be with the small minority? So, yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Zach, yeah, you have a question? Three days. Yeah, the Prophet said if you recite it in less than 3, then you will not fully comprehend what you're reciting. Because then you have to recite really fast to finish the whole Quran in 3 days. But again, that's not an outright prohibition. It's strongly disliked, and it's against the Sunnah to make that your habit. Yeah. Another question? Yeah.
But is it valid if while you're going down or whatever, try to cover at least
So the better thing for you to do is wear longer shorts, and you should try to make this your habit. Because you don't want to be that person who has to play with his shorts the whole salah. Whenever you're going down, you're pulling them down. And whenever you're coming back up, you're bringing them up. How are you going to focus in your salah? And no, we say this to the brothers who also wear short shirts that show their rear end. Do you want to be that person who the whole prayer, he has his hand behind him just like this, pulling his shirt down? You're going to disturb everyone next to you. What is this guy doing? Why does he keep on moving? Alright, so the whole point of salah is to have khushu' and have that focus in your salah. So when you do that, you're not going to be able to focus. But again, in terms of the fiqhi opinions, some of them say that you have to cover the knee. Some of them say you have to cover until the knee. You don't have to cover the knee. And then those are two strong opinions. The minority says that no, it's okay if the thigh shows, but I don't recommend following that. Okay? Anything else? Okay. Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu feekum, and please make sure you try to take some tea and some snacks on your way out.